Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are tackling something absolutely massive. We're decoding the spiritual laws regarding our ultimate destination. I mean, think about it. Whether you've spent years pondering the afterlife out of deep philosophical curiosity, or you just occasionally wonder what's next, the concepts we're looking at today offer this incredibly structured, almost architectural blueprint of what comes after death. And more importantly, how the choices we make right this second are literally building that future. So let's jump right in with the ultimate question from Chapter 3 of our source material. What actually determines where you go after death? Is it some giant cosmic scoreboard, a tally of good deeds versus bad? Well, as we're going to see, the answer provided is way more intrinsic. It is deeply, deeply tied to our everyday psychology. To thoroughly understand this vision of the afterlife, we'll be climbing a structural ladder through 4 specific steps. 1. The state of mind after death. 2. The fifth dimension's criteria. 3. Practicing the eightfold path. And finally, 4. Ascending to higher dimensions. Now, all of our insights today are drawn directly from Ryuho Okawa's comprehensive spiritual text, The Laws of Rebirth. Specifically, we're zoning in on Chapter 3, which lays out highly actionable criteria for entering what the text defines as heaven. So this isn't just some abstract philosophical musing. It's presented as a literal, step-by-step guide. Okay, let's look at the foundational premise. Section 1, State of Mind After Death, the Ultimate Mirror. Right here in Chapter 3, Ways to Return to Heaven, the core spiritual law is surprisingly straightforward, but man, is it profoundly challenging. The rule is this: your destination after death is strictly determined by your state of mind during your lifetime. Look, in the physical world, sure, we can hide our true feelings behind a polite smile. But according to this text, in the next world, your mind is completely, 100% exposed. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that you cannot fake your way into heaven. Your internal frequency sets your external reality. If your mind is full of gratitude and peace, you naturally gravitate to a realm that reflects exactly that. On the flip side, if your mind is constantly clouded with anger or resentment, you are drawn to a world that perfectly mirrors those turbulent emotions. It's kind of like the ultimate law of attraction, just operating on a cosmic scale. Now that we know that fundamental rule, let's move to Section 2, the fifth dimension's criteria, the realm of good people. To actually enter this specific realm, the text lays down some incredibly strict emotional and spiritual baseline criteria. You must possess a pure heart, you have to be capable of genuinely blessing others' happiness, and you must be completely free from envy and jealousy. Now, that sounds simple enough on paper, right? But think about how hard that actually is in practice. We're talking about completely eradicating that subtle, everyday negativity we usually just excuse as being human. This brings us to a brilliant illustration of the core requirement for entering the fifth dimension, which the author calls the enlightenment of love. Listen, this is not a transactional kind of love where you do a favor and expect one back. No way. It is purely about unconditional output. It's a love that just radiates outward, much like the sun, without ever calculating what it's going to get in return. The author grounds this high-minded concept in some very sharp everyday reality. He essentially asks us to evaluate our gut reactions. Let's say a colleague gets that major promotion over you, or a neighbor gets a massive financial windfall. What is your immediate, internal reaction? Do you sincerely think, wow, I am so happy for them? Or does a little dark cloud of envy form? If it's the latter, the text warns us, we haven't quite mastered the fifth dimension yet. Which begs the question, how do you maintain that pure state when life gets stressful? That brings us to Section 3, Practicing the Eightfold Path, Maintaining the Frequency. The text brings in the Eightfold Path, which you might recognize as a core Buddhist concept, but it applies it here as a highly necessary, active maintenance tool. Think of it as your daily spiritual checklist. It's designed for self-reflection, basically keeping your mind from clouding over with those worldly attachments and negative emotions we just talked about. It is exactly how you continuously tune your internal frequency back to heaven's wavelength. Now, what's really fascinating here is how the author prescribes gender-specific criteria for this daily maintenance, drawing on typical societal roles, which we are presenting exactly as they're outlined in the text. He notes that women should place a particular focus on right speech, specifically being mindful to control complaints and negative words, especially in domestic settings. Men, on the other hand, acting as warriors in the corporate world, need to heavily focus on right view,
which means reevaluating hostile, combative workplace mentalities and deep-seated prejudices. It's a really interesting look at applying ancient spiritual principles to modern societal dynamics.
Once the fifth dimension is mastered, the author looks even further upward. Section 4. Ascending to higher dimensions, letting go of the self.
Let's map out this progressive ascent. We start at the fifth dimension, which is the baseline of being a good person. But watch how the criteria shift as we move up the ladder. To reach the sixth dimension, known as the realm of the Arhat, you have to shift from just being good to actively living to serve others, like a dedicated leader or teacher. Then, moving even higher to the seventh dimension, the realm of the Bodhisattva, requires an almost total selfless devotion. That's where the distinction between your own personal happiness and the happiness of all humanity essentially disappears.
Notice the stark contrast here. The fifth dimension is a beautiful state, for sure, but it's ultimately still somewhat self-contained. You're focused on living a good, pure life for yourself and not harming others. But advancing higher, that requires a monumental pivot. It requires completely letting go of self-attachment in favor of serving the greater good. Basically, the higher you go, the less you think about I, and the more you think about we. This powerful concept serves as the ultimate goal of the spiritual ladder described by the author. Ascending isn't about acquiring more spiritual knowledge or power just for yourself. It's about shedding the ego entirely. It is a challenging, profound shift from the desire to simply be a good person to the desire to be an instrument of goodness for the entire world. So I'll leave you with this final thought to reflect on as we wrap up this explainer. If the afterlife truly is a perfect, unavoidable mirror of our earthly state of mind, well, we are essentially the architects of our own spiritual destination right now. Every single thought, every reaction to a coworker, every moment of gratitude or envy is literally laying a brick. So based on your state of mind today, what dimension are you building for your tomorrow? Thanks for joining me and keep exploring.